Prior to the 2010s, most creepy sightings were pixelated, poor quality, and generally could be considered potato can. And for many of these old school sightings, they could easily be dismissed as something mundane, filmed in poor quality. But since the increased accessibility of drones to the general public, there have been a number of sightings captured that are crisp, high definition, and still just as scary as those from the past. And it's all of these factors that, in my opinion, make this footage a lot more interesting. So, without further ado, here are 5 of the creepiest videos captured by a drone. Number 1. The Cannock Chase Ghost Girl. Several years ago, this footage was taken over the notorious Cannock Chase Woods, a rural area in the UK. The quadcopter pans overhead and captures something quite interesting moving along the outskirts of the forest. A figure dressed in white appears to be slowly walking around the edge of this forested area. The drone operator then brings the camera closer for a better look. Superficially, the figure appears to be a female wearing white flowing clothing. To give you some context, the notoriety for Cannock Chase Woods comes from some murders that took place in the latter stages of the 20th century. 3 young girls went missing, and Raymond Leslie Morris was found guilty for the murder. The original uploader of the video speculates that this could perhaps be one of those girls that went missing, hinting to some sort of paranormal, spiritual explanation for this. My initial reaction is that this is most likely a hoax. However, naturally we cannot know for sure. The main factor that makes me suspicious is that they didn't get any closer. They got somewhat closer, but still not enough to identify exactly who this person is, which leads me to believe that it is most likely someone the drone operator knows and has been placed there and instructed to wander around the woods in order to create this hoax. Especially considering the rich history of these woods, it certainly seems like a reasonable explanation. On the other hand, just like in my last video, check that out, maybe this is just coincidence. Maybe there is someone genuinely wandering around in these woods. You should never underestimate how strange people can be. Maybe this is a member of a cult. But until anyone comes forward, we will never know for sure. Number 2. The Ghost Night of Berkeley Castle. Thomas Arnold was testing out his newly purchased drone and its camera over Berkeley Castle when he spotted something that he thought was unmistakably paranormal. For a brief moment, it appears as though something moves very quickly through the grounds of this castle. Whatever this anomaly is, it isn't solid, it's translucent. Arnold believed that the shape resembled that of a knight, which would frequently pass through these courtyards during the Middle Ages. To me, it's hard to make out exactly what this is. It certainly doesn't strike me instantly as the shape of a humanoid figure, but the speed at which it moves definitely checks out for someone on horseback. I think the most likely explanation for this is perhaps lens flare, some sort of anomaly that has occurred while filming. Of course, you have many factors like wind and sunlight, particles in the air that pass across the lens. In photography, you would call this an artifact. It's something that has been picked up accidentally in the footage. Piece that together with a coincidental placement inside an old castle and you have the story of a ghost night. But as always, this is one of those things that we can't 100% disprove. So make sure to let me know what you think in the comments. Number 3. Floating coffins. After the devastating tropical storm Imelda hit Texas, many areas of the state received extreme flooding. A concerned local decided to fly a drone over the nearby cemetery where some of his relatives were buried. To his horror, the orange-filled cemetery was extremely flooded, so much so that many of the graves had been unearthed. The air trapped within the coffins caused them to rise, and like something out of a horror movie, we have floating coffins. I can only imagine the horror that locals must have felt as they saw the coffins of their deceased loved ones floating, and in some cases, some of the bodies slipped free of the coffins. I included this footage as, unlike the other two, there isn't really any speculation here. This is 100% real and 100% horrific. And it just goes to show that not everything has to be unusual or mysterious to be creepy. Scenes like this from a natural disaster can be just as eerie as a potential ghost sighting. Number 4. Drones over Chernobyl. This footage, filmed via drone between 2013 and 2016, shows exactly how devastating the nuclear explosion in 1986 was. The Ukrainian city of Pripyat was entirely abandoned and evacuated. That's a population of 50,000 people that suddenly was no longer there. The result, some 30 years later, gives us some pretty eerie footage. The city, now partially overgrown and reclaimed by nature, has an eerie, ghostly vibe to it. As we pan over this abandoned amusement park, you can almost imagine the children that would have been having fun here if it wasn't for the disaster. It hauntingly reminds us of just how devastating nuclear power can be if not handled correctly. And it's no surprise so many horror movies have been made inspired by this story. Radiation levels are considered unsafe for humans, especially for an extended period of time. But it's no secret that some of the people who were meant to evacuate simply did not. Who knows what became of them? With free-roaming bears and tales of mutants. In some ways, maybe it's best we don't know. Number 5. Swimming with sea monsters. The YouTube channel Fun with Kids 2 claims to be innocently scanning the beach with his drone when supposedly he stumbles across a sea monster. As you can see in this clip here, something long and snake-like appears to be undulating in the water quite close to some of the people at the beach. Alarmingly, the beachgoers don't seem to even notice it's there, despite being only an arm's length reach away. This could be suspicious, as maybe they don't see it because it was superimposed later via CGI, but it could also be an example of how the ocean disguises things from us. Something in the water would make much less sound compared to something next to you on land. And it is possible that a large serpent-like creature could go unnoticed directly next to you and only be visible from a bird's eye view. It's really hard to tell whether this footage is being tampered with, but there are a few things that stand out to me. For instance, the shape of this serpent. It doesn't seem distorted enough by the water, and the movements, the undulations, seem almost unnatural, especially this part here. To me, this looks like someone has used a CGI model and hasn't been able to translate it to the dimensions that would be present if something was under the water from a bird's eye view. In basic terms, the way water manipulates the light, something that's underneath the water viewed from above would have a more angular movement. So it's a pretty spooky concept, but in my opinion, that is the most likely explanation. It's just a decent but not perfect use of CGI. I saw this clip on one of Chill's videos and he tries to argue that the wave dispersion seems realistic, but to me this is just a coincidence. The waves naturally create that foamy effect as the current moves them inwards, and the CGI is just in the right place at the right time. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Whilst researching the first video, I also stumbled across this footage, and oddly enough, they're actually quite similar, just on two different ends of the spectrum. So consider this next video a bonus. Kenny Melendez captured this footage off of a popular Miami beach. The most shocking part is that these beachgoers innocently swimming were entirely unaware of the 9-foot tiger shark weaving within the water amongst them. In some cases, it got so close they could have even touched it. Now, I'm well aware of the bad rap that sharks get, but tiger sharks are one of the few exceptions. As far as shark on human aggression goes, tigers are one of the main offenders. I think it's safe to say these swimmers are lucky that the shark didn't bring its appetite. Unlike the previous footage, this is 100% authentic. And ironically, just like in that video, these swimmers were blissfully unaware of one of the ocean's most fearsome predators being well within its potential attack range. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Does this make you more or less likely to jump in the water anytime soon? Thank you all for watching. Like the video if you did, share it with a friend, and of course, if you haven't already, subscribe for more creepy content.